Thank you for being here. Thanks
Thanks
for doing
for
this.
being here.
Yeah. I want to ask you about all this recent attention. You know, it's like this is obviously not a new project and everything. However, as of late, due to lots of different things, Alpha as a project has gotten tons of attention. I think the most obvious one is like the advancement in AI. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about like why you think so much has been happening just lately, I guess?
Yeah, I think when we talk about the future of education, Alpha is definitely at the forefront of what is happening. And it has been kind of a long time coming. People are so steeped in the traditional education experience that most of us grew up, having done. And it's taken a lot of people time to really get their heads around the idea that artificial intelligence could transform the education industry the way it has so many other sectors. And for us, the reason I think that we've really had this tailwind in recent months is because finally people are hearing about this from the customer's perspective, from parents' perspective, from students' perspective. So we actually had a parent who wrote a very long essay on a kind of a obscure website, Astral Codex.
I read it, yeah.
And that, I think, is the thing that really put it off the map because it sort of gave people an under-the-hood peek at what is this entire experience like. And one of the things that I really believe that parents need to hear a reference from somebody that they trust, and they need to see a kid doing something that their kids either can't do or don't have the opportunity to do. And I think that's what we've been able to kind of show recently, that there is a world where kids can love school. When I say love school, like love it more than going on vacation, and that they can learn so much faster in only a couple hours a day. And of course, that begs the question of what do you do with the rest of the day? And for us, it's all about life skills development, which is what I think ultimately people really care about.
I think another big thing is that like this is such an obvious and blatant problem. I actually don't know what numbers and charts to believe when people talk, oh, the US is like worse in this section, worse in this section. I think it's just like everyone sees it and everyone knows it. And like, I guess when founders give advice to entrepreneurs, they're like, just go fix like obvious problems.
Yeah.
Why do you think more people haven't like been working in this
I
space?
think that people look at education and they think a few very clear things. One of the things that people obviously think is the best way to educate is with a great teacher. And I believe teachers are absolute heroes, but they have been set up in a system that doesn't work. The one teacher teaching to a classroom of kids that are all at completely varying levels of academic knowledge, there's no way that one person can meet every kid where they are. And yet, it's just what we've been used to for the last couple hundred years. So there's been so much money poured down the drain of let's figure out how to train teachers better. Let's figure out how to lower the teacher-student ratio. And none of that has worked. The other thing that I actually think is really an interesting point that is very controversial is everyone has always viewed education as being nonprofit. It needs to be a nonprofit endeavor. And here's what I believe. Nonprofit equals not scalable. And it also doesn't necessarily breed a culture of excellence. There's no reason for people to kind of say, let's go better. And so you're absolutely right. School has gotten even worse over the last several years, right? Our standards have gone down. Student performance has gone down. Meanwhile, of course, grades are going up because of grade inflation. And I think it's finally time to come and look at this problem with new eyes. And part of what we're doing is we're attracting talent that is going to say, how can we truly revolutionize the school experience and deliver great results?
When you talk about being a nonprofit, I think so much of it comes from like the public funding of public education, right? Is the solution let's privatize like K through 12? Is that it? Or I mean, all these numbers are like in New York, they $40,000 to send a kid through public school a year. There's again, these numbers are thrown around. You don't know what stats are correct.
But it's actually a crazy amount of money that goes towards each student in a classroom. And those budgets aren't even counting a lot of the administrative fees. Yeah. They don't put that in the budget when they talk about cost per student per year. It's actually even higher than that. I don't believe it's a money problem. I really do fundamentally believe the model is the issue. And what's phenomenal about what technology now enables us to do is finally implement all of those learning science principles that we've known for 40 years result in kids learning 2, 5, 10 times faster. That's the huge opportunity that we have with AI to provide that one-to-one tutoring experience, personalized learning platform that helps kids learn, and allow our teachers, we call them guides, to instead focus on what I think is the key component to successful learning, which is motivation. You have to have a motivated student in order to make any progress. And something the traditional system has just completely ignored. They kind of say, you know what? Hey, if a kid does well in school, that's great. But if they're not, that's their problem. And at our schools, we are laser focused on figuring out how do you get a kid engaged and excited. And then when you add to that, a kid being able to learn at the right level and pace where they become competent, it completely changes the way a student sees themselves. When they start developing competence, they become confident and they become motivated and excited about doing better.
I think, when you privatize, if you were to privatize the K through 12 education, there is more incentives become more aligned. There are more free market dynamics. You are incentivized to actually provide a good education to kids. Yes.
You are. I mean, when it's a product like that, parents have a right at going to the private school that they choose. They should be able to get the results that they want. And one of the other things that comes up in education all the time is selection bias. And there is no question that there's selection bias. There's certainly selection bias, at our schools. And the public system doesn't really deal with that. But I actually believe that selection bias is the key to helping students do well, right? And because you can help kids find that interest that they have. An example of this is we've got a sports academy. Kids that are obsessed with sports, they want to go to that school and they will do anything to get out on the field and be playing sports. So we can use that as a motivation lever. There's other programs that we have that you could say, okay, this is the interest that certain kids have. When you group kids in a place where they have similar interests, similar motivation models, that's where we've been seeing really great success. And I think, the public system has an extraordinarily hard job. They have a huge volume of kids from all different backgrounds, all different levels of parent engagement, socioeconomic class, everything that they have to deal with. And, they're not there. But I think one of the things that the private system is going to enable is take those customers that are not getting what they want in that public system, allow them to go find a school that's going to fit their needs. And then the public schools can also work better with the customers that are liking what they're doing.
When you get asked about scalability, is your grandiose vision take over? I mean, is it only private, or do you see a way where you can somehow redirect government funding and go into public education?
I would love to see a point where the public system is interested in looking at this type of model. But I understand that they're going to need research. They're going to need a lot of data, and they're going to need time to get everybody on board with that. What I really hope that we can be as an example in the private system that shows how this model of education can get such incredible results. And then maybe over the next several years, this will be something that the public system is more interested in. What we have seen, though, in the last several months is a lot of interest from people in the public sector. And it just takes time for that kind of innovation. In the education world, it's taken more time than it has in other sectors. But I think we will be able to get there. And ultimately, in order to really impact the number of people we want to, that's going to have to happen. The private system can only do so much. And we want to make this more accessible. Our answer to the accessibility at this point is just open up more schools at different price points. In many states that have implemented school choice measures and have education savings accounts, we're getting it to the point where families can go to one of our schools for $5,000 a year in tuition, which, while it's not free, is getting closer to more reasonable.
Technology is obviously changing super fast. Schools do not seem to be keeping up with the pace that the world is changing. I'm curious to know your 10, 15-year vision, kind of what the world looks like. Because, even over the last 3 years, the world's seems completely different. How does that world look to you? And then what traits, skills, whatever are important to have? And then are you focusing on instilling certain certain traits to students based on that vision for?
I don't think there's ever been a more exciting time in history to be a 5-year-old. And that's because we're going to see so much change in the way school is done. Here's what I believe. In the next 5 years, every person is going to have access to a tablet that is going to have all the ability to educate them on everything they need. And they're going to do it a lot faster, more efficiently. But I will tell you what I don't believe is going to change. In 10 years, I still believe parents are going to want to drop their kids off in a building with other kids and with caring adults. That's not going to change. And so then that begs the question, okay, well, what does that school day look like? And what I think it looks like is making sure that kids have great academic knowledge, which can be delivered in this new way, and then equipping them with the skills that they're going to need to be successful in this world. And part of that is just really understanding how are we going to keep humans operating in kind of the gray zone of the frontier of new knowledge acquisition and creativity and collaboration. How are we going to give them the skills they need to do better at the work that they're doing, given that AI is going to come in and take over so many other things? And I believe AI is really good at knowing the black and white of current knowledge, but it's going to be up to humans to kind of go out and expand that universe of knowledge. And that's the skills that we need to give our young people: critical thinking and leadership and teamwork skills and entrepreneurship and the ability to do hard things. We have to allow them to instill that. And some of the things we're doing at our schools already is teaching our students how to use these AI tools to give them superpowers. While so many schools are banning AI outright, I was just talking to a student who goes to a really ritzy private school here in Austin, Texas, and their school's approach to AI has been ban it. And this is, late 2025, and schools still haven't figured out a way to integrate AI learning tools. What we're doing at our schools is our kindergartners are using AI tools to give them public speaking coaching, right? They're using AI tools to build movies and graphic novels. We're using AI to make reading more interesting for students. There's so many cool things that kids can be doing. And you'll talk to some of these students. I mean, they're building apps. They're having command of coding that they wouldn't have had possible before. And so that's one of the key skills that we have to do is how do you make sure that kids are equipped to continue gathering new knowledge, especially when the half-life of knowledge is like 6 months, in the future. It's no longer what, I grew up in college saying, okay, I'm going to get trained on this, and this skill set will last me for many, many years. We have to enable our kids to be really nimble and adaptable and quick to be able to acquire new knowledge, which really comes down to having the skill of learning how to learn.
You talked about in the future, parents will still want to drop off their kids at a place with caring adults. What is the counter argument to, well, if my kid has a personalized one-on-one tutor and they only have to do it for 2 hours a day, and parents can spend more time with their kids in theory, if they you can just go do your thing on your iPad or whatever. What's the counter homeschooling argument? Yeah,
I mean, I think homeschooling, there's a reason that it's becoming more and more popular, and families are choosing to educate their kids at home and give them access to other opportunities that they wouldn't get. But here's what it comes down to, and you are 21 years old. You can relate. I still get it. Socialization is huge, right? Kids want to be around other kids. There's so much that can be learned when you are connecting with people. And I think that human element is never going to be replaced, and it shouldn't be, right? And so you want kids to have that. The other thing that we've really seen is when you transform the role of the adult in the classroom, instead of a teacher who's trying to figure out how to be a subject matter expert and teach 20 plus kids math, for one certain grade, what we're doing with our guides is they're coming alongside our students to be coaches and mentors and to really help a kid find out, what's that thing you're interested in and how do we help you pursue that and go further on there? And I think that is something that also should never be replaced. I would never want to have my kids not have that engagement from a respected, smart person who is totally interested in the well-being and helping my kid unlock really hard, impossible things and meet goals. So I think that, there will always be a role for school, but the difference is we're going to have so much more access to knowledge acquisition. And so the bottom line is people are going to be untethered. They're going to have a lot more flexibility to go spend time doing other things, building up skills. It's still important, though, that we make sure people's heads are full of knowledge, right? There's no reason that we should think AI is just going to allow us to outsource all information to that. In order to be a great critical thinker, you have to have that knowledge. And the other thing fundamentally is when people have a lot of academic information in their brain, it just makes their brain a more interesting place to hang out. Mm-hmm. And that's what we want to have is be a place where kids are learning and finding interests that they have and then being able to go and become experts.
How many adults do you think are needed in the future? Like say the alpha model scales tomorrow to every school in the country. Do you think there's more or less adults involved than there currently are?
Well, I think that's an interesting question. I do believe that when you're using AI to provide the personalized lesson planning, you don't have to worry as much about student-teacher ratios. And so I think you can much more efficiently and effectively deliver academic education to students with fewer people. You're also freeing up time for that adult in the classroom to be able to have more one-on-one connection with a student. And so we can do that. But the thing that I think is also really interesting, we're already seeing this in our schools, we're attracting people who want to come and work with young people that wouldn't be caught dead in a traditional classroom. They realize it's an ineffective place. It's, poorly paid. It's underappreciated, overworked. And so I think what we're going to see is actually more people who want to come in and engage with students, especially when it can be around things like building a business, right? Or doing performing arts, things like that. So I think we're actually going to see probably more human interaction. One of the other things we always tell our students is that successful adults love helping ambitious young people, right? When you're somebody, and it's part of what we help our students learn how to do is go reach out, go make cold calls and cold emails to people and say, hey, I want to talk to you about something. And it's crazy the doors that open when, a kid has the time and the training to go and say, hey, I'm showing that I'm becoming an expert in this field. I would love to talk with you about this thing or get your assistance or your mentorship. And people love getting that. So I think we're actually going to see more human interaction in this model of education than we do currently, even though from an academic perspective, it's not going to be needed as much.
I think that's so important. I tell my friends that kind of stuff all the time. Like while you're still young, like people are more accessible than you think. Like very.
They definitely are. Actually, It was really funny. We had a student a couple years ago when she turned 18. She was like, oh, now I have to go with the I'm a high school student because it's not as impressive when you say I'm an 18-year-old. It's like, she's like, it was great when I was 16, 17.
As you age.
Yeah, exactly. She's like, so now I got to really focus on the I'm a high school student, and that helps. And it really is amazing. And we see this. We have our 4th and 5th graders become experts in a subject and really dive into something that they're interested in, and then reach out to experts in that field. And it's incredible, some of the reactions and the responses that they get and the opportunities that they get just by being willing to go out and, take that step. And most importantly, show that they've done some work beforehand to kind of earn that time, right? And have an intelligent conversation with whoever this person is.
What do you make of teachers fearing for their jobs, their future? I have friends who are currently in college to be teachers. So like, what do you say to that person? Like, what skills do they focus on if they want to be a teacher in the future? And what do you make of current teachers who are maybe 20 years in, who want to like teach for another 20 years? Who feel fearful they aren't going to have jobs?
I don't think teachers will ever be replaced. I hear that a lot from teachers who are scared that they're going to, lose their jobs to AI. I don't believe that. I would never want to send my own children to a school that doesn't have any caring adults in the classroom. But what I absolutely believe is that the role that they play in the classroom is going to change, and it should change. And so the biggest advice that I give to people who say, hey, I'm interested in being in education, it's focus on that mentorship, focus on coaching, focus on connecting with kids and having that time, which is, by the way, what I think most people get into education to do. They want to have a positive impact on students. They don't necessarily get in to say, you know what, my dream is to teach fifth grade math to a bunch of kids who are, all over the board in terms of their knowledge. And so what we are generally seeing and the experience that our guides are having, about half of them come from a traditional teaching background, is there's so much more ability to impact their students in this model. And there is so much more of a reward for that, even though they're not saying, hey, I'm teaching you physics right now. They're teaching kids the skill of learning to learn. One of the things that's really interesting when we have our guides go through the hiring process, the last step in the process is to come to one of our schools and spend a day doing a shadow day and being in it. And the place where we lose people the most often is they're not willing to actively engage and get in it with the kids. They get used to standing back and sort of pointing go do that, go do this. And I think that, unfortunately, is what traditional education departments are teaching teachers to do. So my advice to your friends who are in college is come to our guide school and look at that. We have a guide school, and and we are, we're opening schools like crazy. We're expanding markets. So we actually want to do summer camps next summer, where we're going to have 10,000 students going through summer camps. We need guides who are getting that kind of training to be able to go and develop this. The other thing that I think, when we look at the private market of education, part of what this model is doing is inspiring people to say, hey, I want to go start a school, right? I didn't know how to deliver on the academics, but I can use our Time Back platform to go do that. And then the afternoon can be X, Y, or Z, whatever it is that person could be called to. That could be stuff that you're teaching religious values on. It could be things like, outdoor survival skills, performing arts, sports, entrepreneurship, you name it. There's so many different ways that you can find for kids to go learn life skills in an experience that they're excited about. And so I think that's the other thing is we're going to get more entrepreneurs who say, hey, I want to go make a difference. And I think that's how this model is going to spread.
I have so many questions that come to mind immediately. I'm so excited about the future where there's just these niche sub schools, I guess, of just different categories. One, they're building businesses all afternoon. One, they're rock climbing. It sounds super exciting. How does it feels like to me the main nut to crack here is you have to make a profitable business model so that entrepreneurs will take it and run. Because I personally I know of big business people who want to start schools, or even young entrepreneurs I want to work in education, but it just doesn't seem like a profitable it doesn't align with capitalism. I guess.
Well, and capitalism is so needed in education. That is really going to be what works. And it gets back into, why the nonprofit structure has not been successful. You look at charter schools in this country that have very, very long wait lists. And you'll say, well, why aren't you opening more? Well, we're waiting for donations. And money runs out when you're in that sector versus when you put capitalism into it and you do something for profit, you get more customers, you open more schools to deliver to these customers. And of course, you also have then a requirement to provide great results, because if families aren't getting what they want, they'll go somewhere else. So that's where the free market in education is actually a very exciting thing. The cost of AI is going to go down over time. Right now it's about $10,000 per student per year in our costs that we're doing for our AI platform. I think that in the next 5 years is going to get to $1,000 a year. And then you're going to be able to have a lot of different options. Our alpha schools are really our super high-end private schools where money's no object. We've got all the resources needed to have kids be able to learn life skills by doing things like learning adaptability and teamwork in a sailing workshop where their ultimate test to pass is they sail from Florida to the Bahamas, right? Cool things like that. But you don't have to do that level of life skills workshops in order to learn life skills. You can get kids just out on a field doing this for inexpensively. I think public schools have so many of the resources that they could use and leverage to teach kids life skills. Just instead of what they normally start doing at 4:00 in the afternoon, they could be unleashed to do at noon. Band or robotics or debate team or sports, whatever that is. find those things that kids are interested in. I think it also offers opportunities for kids to do more stuff around trades. And I always think entrepreneurship is a hugely valuable endeavor to build life skills and get kids really excited.
Does that look like a franchising model to you?
I think there can be a lot of different opportunities. There's franchise models. There's people being able to just open their own school and do whatever they want, just use our technology for it. And then, opening, several different things. So I think what you're saying is right. We want to attract great talent who are excited about making a difference in education. And actually, we're already doing that in Texas. We've got coaches throughout Texas that are opening sports academies. They're their schools. They're licensing our Time Back platform. And basically, they're taking whatever their interest is. We've got a martial arts one. We've got baseball, basketball, a general sports, whatever these coaches are getting. And I think what's exciting about that is when people can see that their kids can not just get their academics done in 2 hours, but crush their academics, like be 99th percentile in academics. It's going to help families realize, okay, why would I subject my kid to sitting in class all day when they can do this so much faster and spend more time doing things they love and building skills?
On that point, sitting in class all day and not, I guess, loving school, something what I'm probably most interested in, something I'm very interested to talk to students about, is the transition from Alpha to a higher education institution. Mm-hmm. To me personally, it seems like if I was here and I was loving school and I was working on projects I was passionate about and I could get my academics done in 2 hours a day and it was like a very easy process, and then transitioned to a place where I'm sitting through 3 hours of lectures a day and like lots of like tedious homework, and I guess like they're not focused on kids loving school, they're focused on different things. That seems like it would be a drop off for me. And I'm curious, you have kids who are college age. Mm-hmm. Joe also has kids who are college age. I'm curious to know what their experience has been, kids going from Alpha High to higher education institutions. And then also how that process looks here where does the guidance start? Is there a lot of pressure to like go into these schools? Some of the students are like, I really want to go to Stanford, or UATX is here too. Mm-hmm. How does that look here?
Yeah. So first of all, we believe that the job of a primary, secondary school education is to allow kids to have whatever opportunity they want to have when they graduate high school. So if that means they want to try to get an Ivy League, they should have the grades, the test scores, the extracurricular experience that helps them do that. Or if they want to jump straight into, the world, they should be able to do that too. It's all about making sure kids have as many options as possible. We've started having kids graduate from high school and go on to college. We've had incredible success because not only do they have the great academics, but they've had the time to go do something really cool and impressive that makes colleges go, okay, this is great. What we've seen is that students who come from the Alpha world do very well academically in university setting. Now, they also completely agree, wow, the whole lecture-based classroom format is completely inefficient. In fact, my daughter called me a week into her freshman year of college, and she's like, okay, Mom, I am totally like on board with the way Alpha does things. I was just in my econ class, and out of 55 minutes, there was about 5 minutes of actual information conveyed, and it probably could have been just sent in an email and it would have been easier. But what's happened is these kids have gotten the skill of learning how to learn, so they're not beholden to the professor to learn whatever the skills are they need. And actually, we've seen that. We have a student who, as a freshman at Stanford, took a math class, and the professor was terrible, had such a strong accent that nobody could understand what she was saying. And she looked at that opportunity like, okay, well, I have to go learn this class. I'll just do it using apps, and I'll use lecture time to just kind of review my notes or do whatever homework. At the end of the quarter, she had the highest grade in the class. And when the other students were like, well, I didn't learn anything because that professor was terrible, she didn't have that attitude of like, oh, this is on someone else to help me learn. I have the tools that I need to be able to go learn. Now, there's the whole other aspect of university that these kids are loving, right? It's all the social engagement, the ability to get into other activities, and what eventually happens as well in higher ed is getting into smaller, more seminar discussion-based classes, which I think they do find a lot more interesting. That said, though, we've also had a couple of kids who have said, you know what, I'm not, this isn't working. I'm ready to go out and start building a business or do whatever they want. But fundamentally, I think what happens is so many people will ask this question is, well, if eventually they've got to go into a traditional higher ed experience, shouldn't they get used to doing it now? And that's sort of like saying, well, if you're eventually going to get boiled, you might as well boil the frog early. And I'm like, no. Kids do not need 12 years of training in how to be bored and listen to lecture. Instead, let them go develop those skills and then use college for whatever opportunities they believe are going to help them. And that can be networking. It's opening up, a lot of connections, right? And certainly the social aspects. So I think college and the way people look at university is changing so much in terms of its utility. But that said, we're developing young people that are prepared to go do well wherever they choose to go.
As a very forward-thinking visionary, one could say, in the education space, what are your thoughts more broadly on higher education? What is the purpose of a program post high school, I guess?
Well, I can tell you when I think about my personal experience, I grew up hating school. I was good at it, but I did not enjoy it. And the reason I think I particularly didn't enjoy it because I never saw the connection to my interests, my passions, and my talents with what I was learning. That's one of the things that we are trying to really change, in the K through 12 level. What university does is it often does give kids a little bit more opportunity to go dive into something they think they're interested in. However, it still doesn't do a great job of allowing kids to go find that path that they need. Instead, actually, and this was true at Stanford, and I think it's still true at a school like that. You get into something where it's like, okay, if I'm going here, I got to go be a management consultant, or I got to go be an investment banker, or I'm going to go be a coder, right? Like these are the choices, or an engineer. And I think there's just so much more available in the world for people to get out and do. One of our students has a phenomenal idea for a university that I think is going to happen in the next couple of years, is basically provide a university experience where young people can come together and have that social interaction, take some academic classes, and have opportunities to go work on what we call at the high school level Alpha X projects, kind of masterpiece projects that they can get interested in. So it's almost like think Y Combinator for young people, where they can still have that connection with each other, and not only the connection, but be able to help each other in all of their different things, but have the time to go work on whatever project. Right now, you still hear about people who get really busy with some project. Eventually, they drop out because they don't have time to do it all. And again, that comes back to the same problem. School should not take 8 hours a day, right? And tons of homework to get through. You can do it so much more efficiently. So I think in higher ed, the other place that we're going to be able to see personalized AI lessons work is get rid of all those 100-level classes. There should be no world where you're in these basic 100+ person lectures. Those courses can absolutely be done so much more efficiently and actually better. In fact, Harvard just did a study that they released a year ago that said that kids were learning physics better with an AI tutor than with a Harvard professor, right? Spending less time on it, showing more engagement and better results. So I think that's something that's going to happen. And then, of course, leverage the professor's expertise when you actually have that base knowledge in your head and you can take better advantage of it. Professors don't want to teach these lower level classes either, right?
Yeah. Something that the big thing around this to me feels like you're preparing students to go and succeed no matter what happens, basically. And I think this future, the 10 to 15 year future does look like you need two of the biggest traits, I think, are agency and adaptability, right? And I think that is being instilled very well here and other institutions. Gauntlet's another example. And there are these principles that are both around what you guys do and what they do around incentivization, motivation, and like expectations. you talk a bit about like this agency induction this year is able to happen because of these type things?
Yeah, I believe that having high expectations for a person is actually like key to their happiness and success. Now, we pair that with high levels of support. And that's actually what is so strong and powerful about the culture that we create at Alpha schools is kids know that they've got adults who believe that they are truly capable, that they can do really hard things that their parents don't even believe are possible, right? And they have that and then say, and we're going to help you get there. We're going to figure this out together. And when kids feel like they've got that support and that they're being called to this high vision, it's amazing what they can do. These students are doing just the coolest work because they've been told, like, you're capable, you can do this, you can do more. And childhood should not be this time of just like being underrated, which is what I think our culture does to young people right now. It's like you have no ability to be responsible. We're going to make sure that you follow the rules, stay in line, do exactly as you're told. And I think it just completely crushes so much of the natural curiosity and desire to innovate and build. And I believe all young people, they want to be creators. And what the traditional system does is it pushes them to just be a consumer. And so that's one of the skills that we teach our students is instead of doom scrolling TikTok all day or playing video games nonstop, go build an audience on TikTok to get a message out that helps you build a business. Go build your own video game, do something different. And people love when they are called to that higher vision, right, of being a creator. It creates a sense of agency where they realize, like, I have the ability to go do whatever I set my mind to. And that's the other big key is that we really believe that working hard pays off, right? Working hard allows you to get stuff done, hitting goals and things like that. Having the ability to goal set is a skill that we start with kindergarten, having them learn to do that. And I think that ultimately is what's going to create kind of this type of person that's got a sense of agency, that has the ability to be adaptable, go figure out what it is that they need to learn or do in order to solve whatever problem comes in their way. And that's ultimately where we're going to see a huge burst in innovation and creativity.
What do you think I should ask the students? What's something that the students know that most people don't, I guess?
Oh my gosh. Our students are so awesome. They are by far the most interesting thing about our entire model. And I think, again, that's what helps people understand. What you're going to notice about our students is the energy they have, the engagement that they have, the curiosity they have, and how quickly they have been interested in jumping into things. So I get students here sitting in my podcast room at Future of Education, and I just like to be like, all right, tell me what you're doing, and you're going to be amazed. So I think that's the thing you should ask these students is just like, so tell me what you're working on. What are you passionate about? And, and that's the other thing that I think is so incredible. I was talking to a freshman at our school the other day, and when she came in for her shadow day experience at Alpha to see if it was a school she was interested in attending, she sat down with one of our guides, and the guide asked her, what are you passionate about? And she looked at the guide, and first of all, she said, no one's ever even asked me that question, and I honestly don't know. And she realized she gets up every morning, she goes to school, she goes to tennis practice, she does hours of homework, she eats some dinner, she goes to bed, and she repeats it again. And she said she came home that evening and she was crying to her mom, and she said, I can't believe I'm a robot and I don't know what I'm passionate about. And in a couple of months, she came to Alpha, she did an official TEDx talk. She is building this unbelievable app that is just so cool. And she's like, I wake up energized. And that ultimately was the goal of this school. When my girls were in first and third grade in 2014, the first year the school opened, my whole goal was I just wanted them to have a fire in their belly and a light in their eyes. And when I picked them up from school at the end of the day, instead of saying, nothing, we didn't do anything, I wanted them to be excited. And that's what you're going to see with students that you talk to.
Awesome. Thank you so much for talking today.
Thank you for having me.